Hey, what's up guys? Hardleg Joe here, coming at you with the one-deck profile for episode 171, Invoked Mosh Pit. For our monster lineup, we're playing 4 Kaijus, 1 Currie, 1 Thunder King, 1 Gamecill, and 1 Humongous. We've got 3 Mekk-Knight Purple Nightfall, 1 Mekk-Knight Blue Sky, 3 Dino Wrestler Prankratops, 3 Red-Haired Hasty Horse, 3 Aleister the Invoker, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 Drollin Lockbird, and 2 each of Ghost Ogre, Effect Veiler, and Seravis, the Ancient and Ascended. For our spells, we've got 2 Terraforming, 3 Magical Meltdown, and 1 each of the Book of the Law, Interrupted Kaiju Slumber, and Invocation. Our only trap, 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence. For our extra deck, we're playing 1 Invoked Elysium, 3 Invoked Mekaba, 1 Magellantica, 1 Purgatorio, 2 Invoked Raijin, and 1 each of Star Eater, Vermilion Dragon Mech, Psyframe Lord Omega, Black Rose Dragon, Powered Insectatron, Aleister the Invoker of Madness, and Underclock Taker. The side deck I'll go over in a little bit. So this is a Go Second Stun / OTK deck, based mostly around the Invoked engine, with a whole bunch of other stuff moshed in with it. If you're unfamiliar with Invoked, the core is pretty simple. It's based around this guy, Aleister the Invoker, who's a level 4 monster with 2 effects. First, as a quick effect, you can send him from your hand to the graveyard to give a fusion monster you control 1,000 attack and defense. Secondly, when this is normal summoned or flip face up, you can add 1 Invocation from your deck to your hand. Invocation is a spell trap that lets you fusion summon by sending the materials from your hand. Or, if you're making an invoked fusion monster, which we always are, you can use cards on your side of the field or in either player's graveyard by banishing them. Pretty much all the invoked fusion monsters are made with Aleister plus a generic monster of a specific attribute. There's 6 in total, 1 for each main attribute, though we're only playing the 4 most powerful ones. Raijin is made with Aleister plus a wind monster, and has a quick effect that lets you flip monsters face down once during either player's turn. Purgatorio is made with a fire monster, gains 200 attack for every card your opponent controls, does piercing damage, and can attack all monsters your opponent controls once each. Magellantica is made using an earth monster, and is just a big 3,000 attack point beatstick. Finally, we have Mekaba, who's the one we focus on the most. It's made with a light monster, and once per turn during either player's turn, you can negate and banish a card by discarding the same kind of card from your hand. Regardless of which fusion monster you summon, Invocation has a second effect that you'll want to use after you summon it. If it's in the graveyard, you could target a banished Aleister, add it back to your hand, and if you do, shuffle this back into the deck. This creates a nice little loop where you summon Aleister, he searches Invocation, you fusion summon, which will banish Aleister, and then Invocation resets everything by putting itself back into the deck and putting Aleister back into your hand, so you can search and fuse again next turn. Now this is all well and good, but the key thing you want to do with this deck is OTK. In order to do that, all you'll need is Aleister, one of our many special summoned monsters, and a card in your hand to discard. Aleister plus any other monster we have makes the invoked Link, who's called Aleister the Invoker of Madness, which is a Link 2 with 1,800 attack, downwards diagonal arrows, and 3 effects. The only one we really care about, though, is if a monster is fusion summoned while you control this monster, you can discard 1 card and add either Invocation or the Book of the Law from your deck to your hand. The Book of the Law is a quick play spell that lets you tribute 1 invoked monster and special summon another invoked from your extra deck that has a different attribute. So you link away your Aleister and whatever monster you special summon to make Madness. Then you'll use the Invocation you search to fusion summon from your graveyard and make whatever invoked monster you want. This will trigger your Link, letting you discard to search the Book of the Law. Assuming you made the weakest of the invoked fusions, you still have 2,200 attack. That plus the 1,800 from your Link equals the first 4,000. You then use Book of the Law during the battle phase to tag out your fusion for the Earth fusion, which has 3,000, and you discard Aleister to boost it up to 4,000. Now this will do exactly 8,000 damage, which means you either need to clear the field beforehand, or you need an additional monster to attack and do some extra damage. Fortunately, the rest of the deck is made entirely of beat sticks you can special summon, and hand traps that'll prevent your opponent from establishing a field on their first turn. For starters, we've got the Kaiju engine, which lets you remove problem monsters and potentially summon a 3300 attack point beater to your side of the field. I went with 4 different names so that Interrupted Kaiju Slumber would be live most of the time. Obviously, this can clear the field for you as well. And I just focused on having the 2 lowest attack Kaijus to give my opponent, and the 2 highest attack for myself. These also just happen to be light, making them excellent fusion material for Mekaba if you can't use them normally. The Mekk-Knight engine works great for Go Second decks, and once again they're light, so they're more Mekaba material. Purple Nightfall has the highest attack, so I just went with it, and since it can banish itself to search a Mekk-Knight, I gave it 1 target, which is Blue Sky, who also searches a Mekk-Knight. Together, these 2 make a nice little engine that's a cool +1, since you can summon Nightfall, tag out for Blue Sky, then summon Blue Sky to search another Nightfall. So you take the Nightfall you had in your hand, it replaces itself while putting a 2000 attacker on the field. Prankratops, meanwhile, works both as a beat stick and as removal. It's a 2600 attack point monster that you can special summon if your opponent controls more cards than you do. It also has a quick effect that allows you to tribute a Dino Wrestler, which is always going to be itself in this case, to destroy any card your opponent controls. Red-haired Hasty Horse, meanwhile, is something I pretty much just use entirely as link material. It's got 2000 attack, and you can special summon it to any column that doesn't have any other cards in it. But you don't want to keep this on the field, because if any other card is placed in its column, it will destroy itself. This thing's also Wind attribute, which is nice because you can use it to make Raijin not quite as good as Mekaba, but a good second best. Wrapping up our monster lineup is just a whole bunch of hand traps. I'll assume you're familiar with most of them. Ash Blossom, a nice fire type, that's how you make Purgatorio, and then Droll and Lockbird. I played both of these at 3 because I found they were the most effective against the most amount of decks. The other 3 are only useful in certain situations or against certain decks, so I just played them at 2, and then put a 3rd copy of each one in the side deck. So if you find, for instance, that your opponent doesn't have any effects that target your monsters, you can take out the 2 Surveus, put in your other hand traps. Speaking of hand traps in the side deck, we do have a couple more here. Depending on where you're playing, Psyframe Gear Gamma or Ghost Reaper could probably be better choices than what we have here. The only reason I went with the sort of mixed route is because I'm playing in the crazy Wild West that is YGOPro. As for the rest of the main deck, we've got Terraforming, which searches Magical Meltdown, which searches Aleister, so it's just a bit of consistency boosting. And then we just have Infinite Impermanence, which is just another hand trap, though in this case, it's an actual trap card. Depending on what you're going up against, you may want to replace this with Evenly Matched for a little better time going second, since this can wipe out all your opponent's resources. All that leaves then is the extra deck, which, aside from all the invoked stuff and a generic Link 2 in the form of Underclock Taker, is just a bunch of rarely used synchros. Since most of our hand traps are tuners and we have high-level monsters we could special summon, I just put these in there as extra options, just in case. None of them are key to the deck, and you can replace them with whatever you want, really. If you choose to play Ghost Reaper, then these are the slots that you'll want to tag out for its targets, some of which I included in the side deck. These are probably the bigger meta targets right now, though obviously you'll want to adjust this depending on where you're playing. The only remaining card I haven't talked about then is Invoked Elysium, which I didn't talk about earlier, because in all my testing, I don't think I've ever actually summoned it. It can be a nice bit of non-targeting removal if you need it, kind of like a Black Rose that just banishes all the monsters on the field, including itself. But most of the time, if you have the materials to summon it, you're already winning. So maybe think about replacing this with something else. Regardless, there's the deck. I hope you enjoy it. If you'd like to see Invoked Mosh Pit in action, you can check out the main video. There I'll be playing 10 random duels against opponents on YGOPro, showing off how this thing works. Or if you're short on time, you can just check out the replay video. Both should be linked on the end card and down in the description. Anyway, until next time, good luck and have fun.